All right. Hopefully this will be my last video for the night. When I get in the mood to record, I just sit back and record. I've said this plenty of times. All right. And until it changes, which it won't, I can only say that the iPhone is a bad product. And I'm sure when they wrote this article, they were probably thinking, oh, we're helping people out. What you are, but you're helping people out because the help is needed when the issues shouldn't be there. I have, for the most part, not used always on displays. I mean, it drains the battery, phone's in my pocket half the time or face down, so I really don't need it. But recently, I was like, you know what? I want to be able to have my phone show the time at nighttime so that way I don't have to wake the entire screen. But I only need it at night, okay? I don't need it during the day, and I don't want to go into settings before I go to bed and turn on the always on display, and I don't have to go into settings when I wake up, turn off the always on display. I hope that there'll be some type of way to just say, hey, during these hours, do this. And for the iPhone, from 9 to 5 Mac, they're explaining, here's how to automate the iPhone's always on display. After debuting with the iPhone 14 Pro, which is insane that it took over 14 phones and only the Pro version to actually get an always on display. Like, I remember my first always on display literally 10 years ago now, because it was the Moto X. Yes, from 2013, I believe. That was my first always on display. And it's like, when you get OLEDs, you can do it. LCDs, you probably could have always on display, but battery life probably really would suck, so you really don't do that. But I don't remember, I think the iPhone 10 might have been the first OLED. I honestly don't remember. But OLEDs on iPhones have been around for a little while. But I think with the iPhone 12s, I think they all got OLEDs at that point. I honestly don't remember. But in saying that it took over 14 phones and only the Pro version to actually receive an always on display, Apple has continued to improve its always on screen with software updates. Whether you've got a 14 Pro or 15 Pro, which again, the fact that an always on display is considered a Pro feature boggles my mind. It really does. And that in itself, like, forget everything else with the iPhone, because there are so many other things. The fact that people, iPhone users, whether they use the always on display, I don't know, but they don't push back. Every once in a while you hear, a little bit of clamor or whatever, but it's just, oh, it's nice that we finally have it's nice that we always have this feature. Or, oh, I'm not a Pro user, which I'm still not sure what a Pro iPhone user is, but, I didn't really need that. I didn't really need that feature, so it's not that big of a deal. But anyway, so whether you have an iPhone 14 Pro or 15 Pro, or haven't customized your screen before, here's how to automate Here's how to automate iPhone always on display. And even that's weird. I would have thought it said the iPhone's always on display, but it's iPhone. iPhone is an experience. And I hope you don't forget. But these are the things, again, where Apple thinks they know what you want. With the always on display, when they first debuted it, it was essentially taking your wallpaper and just dimming it. And I think the iPhone 14 has the LPTO display where they can crank down the refresh rate to whatever. But refresh rate differences or not, it doesn't really matter. People were confused because it's like, oh, my screen is still lit. Did I get a notification? No, I didn't. But the screen is still illuminated, which, okay, cool. And eventually, enough people were confused, and Apple said, all right, well, we can push out a feature that allows you to turn off the wallpaper when you have the always on display turned on. Okay, cool. All right, good, because you don't need to look at your wallpaper. Like, oh, it's always, like, no, if you're looking at your screen, cool. If you're doing something, cool, but you just need information on the screen when it's in the always on state. Okay, so After launching without much flexibility, Apple released the first always-on display customization with iOS 16.2 that allow users to turn off colored wallpapers and notifications from the always-on screen. Okay, see, so I already said it, and boom, it was in there. After that, Apple made it possible to schedule, automate when iPhone always. I hate how it's phrased because it's not the iPhone. It's when iPhone always on is enabled via focus filters. Ugh. And there are 6 steps here. And the fact that you need to create a focus filter, which is just a different form of do not disturb, to automate your always on display. Now, I can imagine one benefit of it being tied to a filter is that you might have multiple times throughout the day that you want an always on display on, maybe not just one static time. So with different filters, you can tell it to do different things at different times. But I'm just like, okay, whatever. So I'm going to read them to you. All right. So how to automate iPhone always on display with focus filter. Open the settings app on your iPhone 14 Pro, Pro Max, or 15 Pro, Pro Max with iOS 16.4 or later required. Choose focus. Pick an existing focus or create a new one. Swipe down. And under focus filter, tap add filter. At the bottom, choose the new always on display. The default will be to turn it on. Tap add in the top right corner. To automate this, make sure you have either smart activation on or a schedule set for the focus filter you've added always on to. Geez, like they're missing. What articles? Okay, just above focus filter. Okay, you can also tie the always on or off filter to different lock screens by linking them with focus mode. Long press on your lock screen, tap focus. Jump into another focus mode and set always on or off to automate the feature. Okay, and you can also make always on display shortcuts, and I'm not going to read those, but and as I mentioned, you know. As a person who wants to think about it, it is, all right, why would this exist? Okay, I see why you might want to have different times for the phone to do different things. I would be curious to see how many people actually use it. Because again, I don't know. But what I do like, and maybe I'll actually record this or something or have something running, but on my Zen phone here, because for some reason, and the Pixel, I haven't been able to find a way to tie a time to the always on display. It's either on or it's off. But with my Zen phone here, you go to settings, and then you come down to display, and you come down to always on panel. Okay, you can turn it on or off. Right now it's off, so I'll turn it on. And now it's on. And within this is where your options are. So you can say it's either, you can tap it and it'll show the time for 10 seconds. You can have it so that it's just always on any given time of day. Or you can essentially automate it by saying, hey, I want the always on display to start at this time and I want it to end at this time. Now, from Apple's perspective, I could see that, well, yeah, as I said before, if a person wants to have the always on display on at multiple different times throughout the day, then yeah, you'd have to create all these different focus filters. I guess. Is that something that I would need? No. But I'm happy that I can just simply go into settings and just set a time. And that's that. And from my perspective, that's just how it should be. But again, I'm open-minded. And I also feel that the way that at least the Zen phone is doing it, it makes it simple. Okay. Now, if Apple wants you to have the option to turn it on multiple times throughout the day, I feel like it should also just give you that simple interface as well. Oh, I just want it on from 11. I think I have mine set from 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. It's on. So anytime that I'm sleeping, I can just look over and see it. And then for the rest of the day, it's off. But I think that should be included in iOS as well. Now, the one thing that I can't do, because I don't have a Pro phone, because that's a pro feature, is with my iPhone 15, I can't configure is even an option in the iPhone or in iOS for the pro feature or for the pro devices. So, so yeah, I thought that was hilarious. When I saw that, I was like, man, we got an explainer on how to set time for an always on display for your pro level iPhone 14 or iPhone 15. At that point, that's just, I don't want to say it's too confusing, but I like the way that Android did it. And again, it's because I only need it at nighttime. Somebody might want it for 2 or 3 or 4 times, or depending on whatever other circumstance. So I get it, but I still feel like this is just, it's a more, I don't want to say better. It's just a different implementation, and the always on display options and the way to control it are all within the all within the display settings, and I don't have to go to do not disturb or whatever. But since I got you, and I'm talking about do not disturb and stuff on the iPhone, or focus filters, whatever you want to call it. When you first set up the phone, I think there's do not disturb. I think there's a sleep and like a work focus filter or whatever, like that just kind of comes pre-configured. And the first afternoon that I had set the phone up, I think I tapped sleep, assuming that it would just mute everything. Unfortunately, I think I'd gone into the settings because I think I understand a lot of stuff, but I was confused in there. And instead of me going off memory, because it's similar under Do Not Disturb, and in fact, it's all called Focus now, and Do Not Disturb is one of the options for Focus. But you essentially, and maybe it's like this for all Do Not Disturb, you know. I mean, yeah, let me look at this over here. You know, you do. And I think I was just confused in the iPhone Do Not Disturb settings, because I'm looking at the Android one and I'm like, all right, who can interrupt? And it seems to make more sense. Calls. Who can interrupt? Okay, nobody. But over here, it's silent. You have a white list and a black list. And that's what confused me, is that instead of just, if it were only a white list, I would say, okay, cool. I need to add things to the white list. But it looks like, and I might be wrong, but it looks like you can't have the white list and black list going at the same time. It's one or the other. So I think I selected the blacklist, which is silence notifications from, instead of allowed notifications from. And I think I just said, all right, I'll just leave it there and assume that just meant everything. But it didn't. And the phone rang when I was taking a nap and I was upset. So I think I get it now. But instead of just using focus filters at all, I just use Do Not Disturb, which again is considered a focus filter because you have to tap focus and then it turns Do Not Disturb on. So that's just Apple's way of doing it. I'm sure it makes sense to a lot of people. I'm not here to try to get people or change people's minds, but I thought it was confusing initially to see a white list and a black list instead of just a white list. But hey, we're all different. And those iPhone users are so used to that, and they'll just continue, using their iPhones. So yeah, I think that's that. And always on display. Surprised that more people aren't complaining that their iPhone regular 15 doesn't have an always on display. Oh, but the last thing, and again, while I have you, if you made it this far, speaking of the always on display and what's missing. So again, what I wanted is this. And in fact, yeah, you can see always on display. It is 11:08 right now, and it's kind of dim right now because all the lights are on. But that is perfect. When I put it underneath the lamp over there, it has the ambient light sensor, so it gets brighter. But at nighttime, it is nice. Black screen, just with the numbers illuminated. Date, time. I think if I have notifications, they show up there too. But I don't think it's going to work. But let me see if I can do this. So right now I've been charging my camera. So let me see if I can do this. All right. So with the iPhone, and I don't know if it's iOS or iPhone dependent, really don't know. You have standby. So standby is essentially turning your phone into a clock radio, a nightstand clock. Now, with the Pro phones, because they have always on displays, you can set it where it stays on all night. With these devices, these non-Pro devices, it'll turn on and then turn back off, and you have to tap the screen to illuminate it. In order to activate standby, the phone needs to be horizontal and needs to be plugged in. So let's see if this works. All right, so there it is. So right now, it's trying to unlock, and of course it's not since I'm not looking at it. But I haven't spent any time trying to customize it. But yesterday I plugged it in, and it started showing a photo reel. And I'm like, why would I want that? So, and in fact, yeah, it's telling me to unlock to view photos right now. And I guess that's what you were seeing. So, I mean, I guess somebody might want that. And I can imagine if I go into settings, what's it called? Standby. In fact, yeah, there it is. So night mode, display, show notifications. Standby mode, returners. Yeah, like, all right. Standby will turn on when iPhone, damn it, is placed on its side while charging to show information like widgets, photo frames, or clocks. How do I choose what I want it to show? I can change the display mode, so whether it has a red tint in low ambient settings, I can tell it whether or not to show notifications or not, or I could turn on show preview on tap only. But it doesn't tell me how I can configure it to not show photos, which is something I don't want. Simple, all right? Oh, 1111. Simple. And if I unplug it again, yeah, and it again wants to show photos. And I'm like, that is one thing I do not want, but I don't know if I can even change it. So again, and I don't know if I've said it in this episode or not, but the iPhone is not a good product. And that's just another example of, all right, I guess I could just turn standby off. However, I'd like to leave it on to use my phone as a bedside clock at night so I don't have to illuminate the whole screen. But what I also don't want is to tap it and have it show me a bright ass photo when I'm trying to sleep and I happen to wake up and I just want to see the time. So standby, thanks for bringing it to iPhone, but I don't say it's pointless if you don't have an always on display, but it kind of is. And even for those who do have always on displays, if it's showing you stuff you don't want to see, it then renders it pointless. So I just wanted to add this to the very end of the video. I just finished rewatching it, and I was thinking, and I guess I have a theory, that the setting in the standby setting on my phone, so a non-Pro iPhone 15, it's an incomplete setting, or it's dependent on a setting that doesn't exist on my phone. So for the Pro phones, you have the option for the always on display, just in general. And in that setting now, you have the option to turn off the wallpaper while the always on display is on. So my guess, and again, a big guess, maybe I could confirm this with somebody else who actually has a Pro level phone, is that because I have a non-Pro phone, I don't have an option to do anything with an always on display. And within that always on display, I would have had the option to turn off the wallpaper. But since I don't have it, the only option on by default is show me photos as if it's an actual wallpaper that I may or may not want to see. So I might bother somebody one of these days to try to get a little more information about it. But for the time being, I think it's an incomplete setting that's just lacking.